This is an Eastman 52nd Street alto saxophone, and in this video I'm going to give it a detailed review from a player's perspective and from a technician's perspective. I'm also going to rate it from 0 to 100, and at the end of the video I'll play test it and give an up-close video of this saxophone. My name's Scott Reed. I'm a woodwind repair technician and a woodwind player. Let's get started. This Eastman saxophone is a professional saxophone, and it's keyed from low B flat to high F sharp. It's hand engraved. It's got some really nice engraving on it. I really dig this little scene on the back with this car parked on 52nd Street and the little street light and the little entrance to the club. I think that's just kind of cool. I don't know what 52nd Street is. Chime in if you know what that is. I didn't really do any research, but it's a cool scene. I dig it. The saxophone also has some unique pearls that look nice. However, I do get these in where the pearls have fallen off, and you can see on this one I've replaced the G key already because it's fallen off and missing. Another unique feature I kind of like on this saxophone is the F sharp key guard is removable, which is nice from a technician's perspective because it makes leveling that pad and working on it a lot easier. If you're liking this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also please subscribe. A couple interesting design features on this saxophone is these lower bell keys have double arms, which make the keys a lot more sturdy and helps keep them stay in adjustment better. It's got it on the low C as well, and that's a nice feature to have and makes the saxophone a little more stable. It also has adjustable palm keys, so on these palm keys you can remove this little Allen screw and raise the heights of these, which is really nice because most players have a different preference on key height, and that's something that's usually a little bit too low because a manufacturer has to make that key low to fit everybody's hand, and it's nice just to be able to adjust those up and still have that nice feel of the brass, and it still fits your hand well. I also like this contoured octave key lever. It feels really nice under the thumb and just feels really natural and easy to maneuver that key. It also has metal thumb hook and thumb button, which has a nice feel. The upper stack and the lower stack have adjustment screws back here for making your fine adjustments a little easier. However, a lot of these saxophones, they'll put enough thread locker on there that makes them really hard to turn. I actually didn't need to turn these when I made the adjustments. Traditionally, you would just either sand the cork or add cork, or maybe make a slight bend depending on where the adjustment needs to be made. So adjustment screws aren't necessary. They are nice for making those fine adjustments. And the posts on this saxophone are ribbed, so the posts are soldered onto one piece of brass, and that brass is then soldered onto the body, and that makes a nice sturdy saxophone. The sound quality on this saxophone is really nice. It's got a really flexible sound, I think, and I feel like it's a warm sound, and it's a pretty free-blowing saxophone. I actually had a lot of fun playing this saxophone. The factory setup is good on these. Overall, this saxophone actually is a few years old, and so some of the stuff I did to it was from normal wear and tear, but you could tell that it was put together well from the factory, and the ones I've gotten in that were still fairly new were set up really nicely. There was some key play in the upper stack, and not a whole lot. The rest of the horn is actually pretty tight. It's a really well-built horn. It is a few years old, so the key play, which is really minor, could just be from a few years of playing. Probably not. It takes a lot for a saxophone to get a significant amount of key play. The glue used in the pads is a hot melt glue. They didn't use a lot of pads, which is pretty typical of new saxophones. They just use enough glue to hold the pad in. They'll clamp them, get a deep pad seat, and then bend the pad cups to where the pads are level. Another interesting feature I didn't mention was this saxophone has rolled tone hold. It does make for more surface area for the pad to seat, and it can actually make a little trouble if there's some damage. It's a little harder to level a rolled tone hold than it is a straight tone hold. The materials used overall look really nice. The pads seem like really good quality. The resonators they use on the saxophone are a metal resonator. They're a little undersized. I'll typically put something that fills the tone hole up more than something like with how this saxophone has. I don't go extreme, but I do like to have the resonator pretty full in that tone hole. I don't think it's a big deal, but that's just something I noticed on this saxophone, which was kind of interesting because usually to get more projection they'll put a bigger resonator, which could account for the warmer sound. That's hard to say without changing out resonators and see how it responds to a bigger resonator. Then you have a whole new setup and you'll open up a can of worms, but just a thought I had. Also, one thing I wanted to mention on the adjustment materials under the key feet and where it hits the adjusting back bar, they did look like a tech cork, which is a really good adjustment material because the tech cork doesn't compress like a natural cork does, and so it makes for a longer lasting adjustment. Tech cork can get noisy. I'll end up using felt a lot of times, but sometimes tech cork's necessary just because of how everything sets on the adjustment bar. This one's quiet, so I think it's fine. In most cases it is fine. I tend to use a felt because it is slightly quieter. Overall, the key venting was really good. I did have to make some adjustments, like specifically the low C and some minor adjustments here and there, but overall the key venting was really nice. And that makes for a good playing saxophone. When you have a new saxophone that's playing really well out of the box, usually the key venting's right. Well, I'll say always the key venting's right. You can have leaks, but it's still playing really well, but the key venting's right. When the key venting's off and it's sealing up, it's not going to play well. The spring tension overall was decent. There's some unevenness in the upper and lower stack, and the side keys are really, to me, feel a little tighter than they should be, and maybe like a little bit of balance on the low C and E flat. But overall, it was acceptable. I'll make some adjustments and make them feel a little better. Before I move on to the rating system, let me know if you've played one of these and what your thoughts are and how it compared to maybe your saxophone, or if you own one of these and what it replaced, or if it's maybe your first professional saxophone. Let me know what you think. On to the rating system. This saxophone rated a 66 out of 100, which is a little lower than some of the professional saxophones I've rated, but it's still a good score and it's still a great saxophone. Here are the individual categories. Ease of future adjustments, that receives a 5 out of 10. That's mainly because of the glue used in the saxophone, and that's going to make adjustments harder to maintain in the future. Key venting, 8 out of 10. Overall, it was really good. Had to make a few minor adjustments, but overall, the key venting was really nice on this saxophone. Sound quality, 9 out of 10. Every saxophone that has a good sound, even if it's not my personal preference, will receive a 9 out of 10. Build quality, 8 out of 10. Overall, this saxophone's built great. My only real concern was that key play in the upper stack, but overall, it's a really nice built saxophone. Factory setup, 8 out of 10. The factory setup was really nice. Pad glue used, 3 out of 10. Overall, they used a decent amount of glue, but not enough to maintain easy adjustments in the future. Spring evenness, 5 out of 10. Material quality, that's the pads, corks, felts, the rods, the metal that's used in the pivot screws, that receives an 8 out of 10. Cosmetic looks and finish quality, that receives a 7 out of 10. I knocked a point off of that one because of the pearl that fell off of it. And overall, it's a nice looking saxophone. It's being unfinished. You do get to see some of the raw solder and stuff, so that kind of adds to the character of the saxophone, but it does maybe hurt the finish quality a little bit, in my opinion. Long-term value and resale, 5 out of 10. These saxophones hold their value as good as any Taiwanese-made saxophone. However, they're going to lose value, and that's just a fact. So unless you find a good deal on a used one, you will lose money when you buy a saxophone like this. That leaves us with a 66 out of 100, which is a little lower than the other saxophones I rated. However, I think it's a great saxophone, definitely one to consider if you're shopping for an alto saxophone. Eventually I'll have a spreadsheet done and we'll be able to keep better track of where we're at with the rating system. I've only done a handful of these so far, so it's pretty easy to keep track right now. Let's move on to the playtest and the up-close video of this saxophone. My name is Scott Reed. I'm a woodwind repair technician. I play music professionally. I buy, sell, trade, and collect musical instruments. And now I have a YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching.